This is lesson 3.1 continued. So we are going to focus on the distributive property in this part of the lesson. You will need to know how to use the distributive property so you can then later work on simplifying expressions by combining like terms like we did on the first part of lesson 3.1. So in the distributive property, we are multiplying. And what you're going to do is you're going to find the number that's by itself. So these are your kind of more basic distributive property problems, these three. So you're looking at the number that's all by itself, or it's maybe kind of on the outside of the parentheses by itself, and you are going to multiply that number through each term inside the parentheses that have the operation in it. So in this example, my 4 is the number that's by itself, so I'm going to need to take this 4 and multiply it through each term in the parentheses. I need to take 4 times x, and I also need to take 4 times this positive 5. Now it's really important that you pay attention to your signs in these problems when you are multiplying, and remember your rules of same signs positive, different signs negative when you are multiplying. So, and it doesn't necessarily really matter which order you multiply. It's okay either way. I just like to work left to right, so that's what I'm going to show. So here we need to take 4 times x, right? We just basically put them together and we get 4x. Okay, we need to kind of pretend there's a 1 in front of that variable if you do not see a number. So 4 times 1 is just 4, and then the x is tagged on at the end. Now we also need to take 4 times 5. Now look at your signs. This 4, there's no sign in front of it, so we treat it like a positive, and I have a plus or positive sign in front of this 5. So I have the same signs there, so that is going to be a positive or plus, and then 4 times 5 is 20. And then once I get to 4x plus 20, these are not like terms. They do not have the same variable raised to the same power, so that's as far as we can go. And that is in simplest form. So that's what our answer will look like on that. You're just simplifying, you're not really solving, okay? Next example, okay? Where is our term that is all by itself, okay? -3, that's the number we're multiplying through each term on the inside of these parentheses. So I'm going to need to take this -3 times this -6 and this -3 times this positive 2w. Okay, so looking at our signs, I have a -3 times a -6. Our signs there are the same, so that will be a positive answer. 3 times 6 is 18. And then I need to take this -3 times this positive 2w. Well, a negative times a positive is a negative, or I'm going to put that minus sign there. And 3 times 2 is 6. So 3 times 2w is 6w. So 18 minus 6w. All right. Now, if you multiply this -3 times this 2w first, that's okay. You would just get -6w first because I have different signs, so answer is negative. And then this -3 times this -6 is a positive 18. So either of these would work. All right. As long as that 6w has that minus or negative sign in front of it, which it does in both cases, and this 18 has a plus sign, or it's indicated with a positive sign, which it does in both cases. So either of these is right, they mean the same thing. They are both in simplest form. All right. Next example, I have -7 and then times the quantity of 5y minus 4. Okay, so we're taking this -7 and multiplying it through each term. So -7 times 5y is -35y, right? Different signs, my answer is negative. -7 times 5 is -35, so -7 times 5y is -35y. Now I have -7 times this -4. We need to treat this 4 like a negative because it has that minus or negative sign in front of it. So here I have the same signs, so when I multiply 7 and 4, that will be a positive, and 7 times 4 is 28. So -7 times -4 is positive 28. And that is in simplest form because those are not like terms. All right, so to help us solve simplifying expression problems, and we have problems that look like one of these two, we will need to understand how to solve distributive property problems in order to kind of simplify this expression a little bit first before we can combine like terms. So right here I have this 13g by itself. I can't do anything with it yet, so I'm just going to bring it down. And I'm going to bring this plus sign down. All right. Now, right here, this looks like a distributive property problem, so we're going to distribute the 2 to the g and the 2 to the -8. So 2 times g is just 2g, and 2 times negative 8 is negative 16. Now, I have simplified this part up a little bit, so now I'm able to combine like terms here. I have 13g plus 2g. They both have the same variable raised to the same power, so we can combine those. So 13g's plus 2g's is 15g, and then I have to bring down this minus 16, right? We can't forget about that. It's still got to come down in the problem if I cannot combine it. Now, 15g minus 16 is in simplest form because those are not like terms, so I can't combine those. So 15g minus 16. All right, last example. Okay, we have a couple distributive property parts on each side of this problem. So I need to distribute the 20 times p and 20 times 2. 20 times p is 20p, and 20 times 2 is 40. My signs were both positive on everything there, so signs were the same, so my answers down here were both positive. 16 times negative 3 is negative 48, and 16 times this minus p or negative p is negative 16p. Now we can simplify. We need to combine like terms. So we need to ask ourselves, do I have anything else that has just a p on the end of it with no exponent? So 20p and right here, minus 16p. So we have to pay attention to the signs in front of each term. So I'm going to treat this 20p as a positive, and this negative or minus 16p, I have to put a negative there. So my signs are different on 20 and 16, so I need to subtract. 20 minus 16 is 4, and then obviously my variable needs to stay there, because if I'm taking 20p minus 16p, I get 4p. Now, 20 was farther from 0, 20 is positive, so 4 needs to be positive. Okay? So I took care of my two terms that have the variable on them. Now I have a plus 40 and a minus or negative 48. Those are like terms, right? They're both constants. They're both just numbers. So I have a plus sign here, and there's a minus sign in front of that 48. Once again, I have different signs, so we need to subtract. 48 minus 40 is 8. And do you see how I'm leaving some room right here? I need to now put a plus or minus sign. That's why I left a little bit of room. We ask ourselves which one of those numbers was farther from 0, or which one has a greater absolute value, right? 48 does. 48 has that minus sign, so we put the negative or minus sign in front of the 8. Now 4p minus 8 is in simplest form. All right. Your homework, you will be getting a worksheet on the distributive property. All right. So if you have not gotten that yet, just make sure you get that from me when you see me next.